Dubz has entered the waiting room for this meeting. I'm dead. Let's go.
Why don't you go ahead, give us your pronouns and give us like a little verbal business card of who you are.
I am Obioma Ugoala. I'm a cisgendered male. I'm straight. I trained at the Drama Centre London and have since performed with the Royal Shakespeare Company and was in the original cast of Motown and Hamilton London, where I played George Washington. Which is how I know you.
And like, how funny, because I feel like we really only came into our friendship in like the last 2 months of Hamilton.
Right, yeah.
I was like, oh my God, you. Full disclosure, I think I always rested on those laurels of, yes, I am an ethnic minority. Yes, I am a woman. And existing in those demographics is fight enough, but it's not.
Firstly, as much as you can be, because you can be a minority or, somebody who isn't properly represented in any industry, and think that in and of itself is a fight. And it is a fight. You will experience prejudice and systemic, oppression. But sometimes that's not enough to just have that fight, because actually the problem is bigger than you. And the issue with a lot of these isms, be it kind of racism, sexism, the patriarchy, ableism, homophobia, it's so much of it can be internalized. When you're talking about systemic structures, you can think that actually there is a right way to be a black man, or you can think there's a right way to be gay, or that actually if I was being the proper kind of woman, if I was wearing the right outfit, and having that internalized notion can then limit your own sense of self, and it can cause you to judge and kind of put those oppressions onto other people. Even I, as a mixed race man, can be like, oh, actually, you know what? If you were being the right kind of black man, then you might be, you might do this properly. If you're being the right kind of, and I think that in and of itself is something to be wary of, because that's one of the issues with being able to just exist. It's larger than that, and that again we should be forgiving with ourselves, because some of these structures have been around for centuries. So it's not like we're not just going to single-handedly, like, they are designed to exist and to keep existing and to be resistant to singular efforts.
I've been reading this report that the Arts Council of England published in 2016, an audit of theatre in England. I'm going to read a section from the report. Getting new audiences is easy. Getting them to come back is difficult. It's generational. For it to be meaningful and sustained, it's going to take years. Short-term initiatives don't work. That's why we have the typical audience. If they don't come in when they are young, they'll forever say the building is not for them. Underneath money, this idea of being allowed to come in is the biggest barrier. So I think the obvious reason for the homogenous audiences that we experience is because that traditional socioeconomic background of the people coming dictate that they are probably white. And because they can afford it, they have a history of being able to access it, which means that they're cultivating an interest in it. So on the other hand, if you have minority ethnic backgrounds who traditionally suffer from a lesser than or harder economic lifestyle, if they can afford to go to theater in the first place, they will never cultivate those interests anyway. And when they go ahead and make some money, they're not going to buy a ticket for theater because they're not interested in it. What's specifically interesting about Hamilton is that you have this kind of ideal where, because the people on stage are diverse, you're going to pull in a diverse audience. But that phenomenon, obviously we saw it didn't exist because our audiences were very homogenous. They weren't diverse. There are so many things other than the actual price of the ticket of going to theater, which make it inaccessible to many people.
So there are a couple of things at play here. I think, first of all, the government has a lot to answer for. The arts education budget has been slashed, and schools, even if they haven't had their budget slashed, have because of for instance, the double weighting of some of the STEM subjects. So because you're saying science, technology, and maths, you're saying these are the things that we want to focus on. If I'm a school who's trying to, be concerned about the grades and grade tables, I'm not going to focus on English, drama, and music. Because there's no, and if my funding is dependent on how well my students do, I'm going to make sure that on the core subjects, they get those grades, because I think that that's important. I think what's interesting is that you have schools such as Eton who have had a resident theatre director for their school shows for the past 25 years, at least. And one of them was Simon Bilmondy, who had been an RSC stalwart for, over 20 years. So there's a part of me that thinks, the value of it. Eton knows the value of it. The arts are important, but it's just part of the culture. We then say, who actually is our art for? Who do we want making our art? And so I don't want to be, personally annoyed that, 50% of the BAFTA winners have come from private school. I don't want to be personally annoyed at those people, because it's not their fault. They went to a school and their parents, so, and that's what I mean about the personal and the political. It's that on the personal level, those people, it's not their fault. Schools like that recognize the value of it, and that's why they fork out that money, because they know that it has value. And even just beyond everyone going off to become an actor, director, artist of any description, I think ultimately we are all, as human beings, we're social animals and we are storytellers. So if you can communicate better, be that as a politician, journalist, doctor, CEO, teacher, you will be better equipped if you can, if you have had some kind of proximity with drama and with the arts. So I don't think that it's an accident that those places, teach it.
I wanted to maybe talk about what we can do to move forward from all of this. I think an underlying thing that I think we've been speaking about is the importance of being proactive at a young stage of life.
I think there's something that does happen and is happening with this kind of next generation, kind of post-millennials, where I grew up listening to the radio and kind of just, I watched a TV show because my parents were watching it.
Yeah.
Whereas now you can sit on your phone and watch your Amazon show, or you can watch a YouTuber for kind of half an hour, and that might be your entertainment for the evening.
Yeah.
I think there's something in the cross-generational learning which needs to be encouraged and engaged in and with, because otherwise, people will just think, oh no, I watch my thing. Like, I watch my YouTube channel, because we've got so good at tailoring those tastes to people. So I think there is something, kids like to be stretched because they don't know everything.
Yeah.
Whereas I think once we're adults, we like to think, which is why we find it difficult to go out of a comfort zone and go to a theatre that we've never been to, because we've never been told about it. Whereas a kid, we're like, oh, this is just something that happens. Sometimes we go to the theatre.
Yeah.
And that could be pantomime, it could be, whatever. But if it's something that you do, you just go, oh, this is a place where this is a social space which I engage in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's super important in kind of encouraging that from a young age. You do need to teach anti-racism and inclusivity from a young age, because we teach everything from a young age. We talk about love from a young age. We talk about kindness. We talk about, compassion. Those are complex ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I know 30-year-olds who are still struggling with the idea of love,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean we don't engage with it.
Yeah.
From the age of 3, 5, 7, you say, you should, you love your brother. That is something that we are constantly teaching. So I don't understand why with inclusivity and with kind of anti-racism, it's something that we feel so kind of defensive about.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we should be afraid of it.
No, definitely not. Great. What a talk. Jesus. Cool. Amazing.